Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the P1 podcast, Great British Silverstone Grand Prix edition. Now, I am in a hotel room, so I'm not speaking as loudly as I usually would, just for the sake of not having my door slammed through, for being far too excited about what we have just witnessed at Silverstone. I'm wearing a hat, yes, because I have hat hair and I can't be bothered to figure it out, so that's why I'm doing that as well. Tom Bellingham, talk to me, correspondent. We were both on the ground this weekend, and
we were.
I am so glad we were on the ground. My God.
I know, what a weekend, what a race. I also am speaking quite quietly, one, because I've lost my voice a little bit, which is great for a podcast, mainly because we were on the main stage, absolutely threw it down with rain, got a bit of a cold from that, and also got sunburnt, which Silverstone is maybe the only place in the world that you go and you can be absolutely freezing and come back with sunburn as well. So I'll absolutely take it, though, because, oh my God, what a weekend.
It was absolutely ridiculous. The entire weekend, I cannot believe any of it happened, to be honest with you. I think the main thing we have to say is a huge thank you to every single one of you that came and saw us on the main stage at Silverstone. We were back once again for a second year, which is just ridiculous. And walking out on that stage when the likes of Stormzy and Rudimental and then P1 with Matt and Tommy were going on this stage, it's quite something. And we went out there, didn't we? We had a little chat, and then I think I said at the top of our little live show that the weather had held off, and then about halfway through, the absolute heavens opened. But a big thank you to every one of you that came along and waited out in the rain for us, because it was truly, truly special.
It was so special. Yeah, like, it was apocalyptic rain. It wasn't just a little sprinkle of rain. You know, for people to stand out in that rain just to see us two chat waffle about Formula One is pretty unbelievable. But we wouldn't miss it for the world. And yeah, thank you to everyone that waited out and chatted to us as well, because we love hearing that, you know, why you love the pod and all that good stuff. So
absolutely. My favourite weekend of the year is the British Grand Prix. Every single year, sorry. And yeah, wow. I
even if the race wasn't an absolute banger, which it was.
Yes, it was. It was a banger. How good was that? Where are we ranking this? Because, of course, we were there, and you don't get the full pieces of an overall spectacle, I think, unless you've actually watched the race. Because whenever you go to a Grand Prix, you always feel like you haven't seen the full story. And, of course, I've watched the sort of extended highlights, and I've tried to catch up on everything. And has it eclipsed Canada? I think it might have, you know, not just purely because of the racing action, but for the story at the end as well, for Lewis Hamilton to win the British Grand Prix, his 104th victory, and his first in 2.5 years. Madness.
Yeah, I think the race is definitely up there with Canada. Of course, like you say, we were there, and you experience it and you get caught up in the moment. But there's no denying it was an absolutely fantastic race. We had so many different people leading. You had essentially like 3 teams, not just 3 drivers, looking like they could win the race and looking like they had even the best package at different parts of the race.
2 teams and a driver.
True. But yeah, it was absolutely unbelievable. How many times have we said on this podcast, and when we get rain, and with rain in a wet weather race, it has to fall perfectly, and I'm sure someone will go, oh, it actually happened only this time ago, but I don't remember the last time, if you were planning a race, the perfect level where it goes dry to wet to dry.
But not only that, it was dry, but it was wet, but it wasn't wet enough for inters. It was dry. So, like, the dry tyres, that is the perfect conditions, and you could not have written
it was
a better
so
script.
Marginal. It was so marginal. And you know, I was at the final corner of Beckett's.
Chapel, wasn't it?
And No, final. Beckett's Chapel before the Hangar Straight.
Yeah, I think Chapel's
Chapel?
the last one. Yeah.
Okay. I just called the whole thing Beckett's, but Chapel.
Put some respect on Chapel's name. Come on.
Sorry. So yeah, start the Hangar Straight, that final corner, and what was fascinating to watch was when you're there in person.
Not to rub it in, by the way, everyone. Not to rub it in. I know that we will say another 40 times that we were there in person, but we were there in person.
Watching those cars through that corner, they fly through the corner. It's absolutely spectacular. And then when we got that sprinkling of rain, visibly, it didn't look like there was that much rain. But the track was wet enough that they were going so slowly around those corners. There were some moments that I genuinely thought the virtual safety car was out because the speed difference was that much. And we saw that in the race. And we'll get into this later with some McLarens and things like that and how that didn't go to plan. But you could lose so much time. But it was really marginal. And I think the best thing about it, and what for me made it even better than Canada, was the story changed multiple times. It was like, oh my God, Hamilton's going to win. Oh my God, not now McLaren are unbelievable. Norris is easily going to win. Can Piastri win? No. Now, Max is there. Oh no, Max is not there now. Oh, Hamilton's going to win.
Can Sainz win? He was on the back of Verstappen. I was like, come on then. All right.
Yeah.
Not the other driver at Ferrari. We'll get onto that. But
yeah, we will.
Yeah, I think overall, how good was that? Yes. I love how we usually go into our most
how
memorable
good was
moment.
That? Yes.
But we're going to get a little bit excited, I think. Let's start with my most memorable moment, and it has to be Lewis Hamilton winning the race. Utterly sensational, to be honest with you. His drive was brilliant. The first front row start for him the entire year. And you've been saying it, Tommy, and I think a lot of people knew that it could happen if Hamilton sorted his qualifying out and he was in the mix. And if it is a changeable condition race, if it is something that spanners in the works are thrown, if Hamilton's there, he's got a very good chance of winning. And that's exactly what happened today. But my God, it was not an easy thing for him to have won. That is one of those races that, as we saw, him versus Norris, one lap of indecision can cost you a race. But with Hamilton, with his experience, and Mercedes, I think, nailed it today with him. They were the better team and package, in my opinion. Were they the fastest driver on track today? I don't know. I don't think so. Not over the majority of the race, but then they made those crucial decisions, and they were the correct ones. So it has to be Hamilton winning for sure. Like the absolute scenes of Hamilton taking the lead and then almost immediately losing the lead to Lando when that whole kerfuffle happened. But just the vibe, the British crowd had no idea who they wanted to cheer for at some points. Like they'd be cheering that Hamilton just took the lead, and then they'd also be cheering that Norris just took it off him. Like it was utterly
such
ridiculous.
A weird atmosphere. They were spoilt for choice with the drivers, because there was one point where like you can tell this race, it was very much like McLaren were the team. That at one point I heard like people cheering that Oscar had passed Hamilton, and I was like, wait a minute, what? Which
it was
really
weird because I was also cheering when Hamilton took the lead, and then I also cheered when Piastri overtook Hamilton, because I was like, they all had, as you said, their own unique storyline that made all three of them, and Russell, of course, all of them just had like quite a unique way of being like, actually, I'm quite happy for you as well. Yeah,
it was fascinating that like moment where, like you said, I was predicting Hamilton to win because he had that front row start, and we've both been saying that look, he needs that moment where he gets good qualifying, and of course he wasn't on pole, but I think crucially he was ahead of Max and also Lando. That was in my opinion, the fastest car and the fastest driver this weekend. So he had a great opportunity, but I thought it would be gets Russell at the start, and if Russell's behind him, he can extend the lead and get away and win. And boy, was it not easy. Even when he got into the lead, I was thinking, oh my God, Hamilton can actually do this. and then I blinked and he was third. And then because he'd made all that progress in the way, like he's come alive, the whole thing flipped again. McLaren were unbelievable, and he went down to third. And I thought, oh, it's not on now. And then it changed again. So yeah, he just needed that moment, and he delivered. It is an incredible story. Been I think he said 950 days since he last won. Insane.
And I think as well, it's worth mentioning the initial phases of that race. George Russell looked like he had Hamilton in his back pocket, and he was just slowly eking out that advantage, and it was absolutely fine. And dry conditions, I think George Russell probably could have managed Hamilton. But then as soon as it got slippery, as soon as it was Russell leading the train, Hamilton was all over him, wasn't it? It was instant. It was him. It was like visibly Hamilton was so much quicker than Russell in those slippery conditions, all over the back of him. I know there is obviously that advantage of being the following car. You can take a little bit more risk than what the leading driver is doing. But Lewis just showed that his experience. He's incredible around Silverstone anyway, and that was like a visible marked, like, yeah, that's Lewis Hamilton making the difference there, because George had that covered until then.
He did. It was maybe a little bit concerning actually during the dry period of the race that we might get a bit of a stinker and it would just be line astern, because nothing really was happening at the start until we got that sprinkling of rain, and then it just threw an absolute chaos bomb into the mix and it was changing all the time. But at the start it did look like it was just all that really happened was Verstappen got Lando at the start, and then they were just held station, and the DRS wasn't hugely powerful. Silverstone's a strange one where sometimes it can be a bit like, oh, why they can't really pass there into down the Hangar Straight because it's not strong enough, and then sometimes it can be like the greatest circuit in the world for overtaking, which we did see when it got wetter and a bit slippier because they were battling all the time. But I was so pleased for Hamilton to win. It's an insane thing to be like. When he's been so dominant, and that was his 104th?
104th,
win.
yeah.
104th win. He's got a lot of them, but it's been such a long time coming. It was so well deserved, and I was absolutely buzzing for him.
And the emotion as well. Like, this is why I love this sport so much. It's the storylines. It's the fact that Hamilton, who is the most decorated driver of all time, and he's crying over a victory, his 104th victory at the British Grand Prix, his 9th home win, and it was almost like that meant more than all of them. It was such a special moment.
I've never seen him that emotional for a win.
I don't think he has ever been, because I'm sure he was going through a different part of his life where it's not the sort of young, I'm the best, I can take everyone on sort of attitude that he might have had in his early stages of his career. He's kind of now at a stage where science is working against him. He hasn't won for 2.5 years. And he said himself, like, self-doubt starts to creep in. Am I good enough? So Hamilton is in a very different stage of his career. And for him to do that and to win, especially his home race, was just, so memorable. Like, that's something that I don't think many people will forget in a hurry, because it's just such a special moment.
It was, and his radio afterwards of him welling up, you could hear it in his voice. And there are a lot of emotional people in the grandstand. I'm sure a lot of Lewis Hamilton fans maybe even beginning to question if he'd ever win a race again, because it's been so long. I was watching the race with my wife, who's a massive Lewis Hamilton fan, and she just like couldn't believe it, because I think a lot of people thought that we might never see Hamilton win again, because once it goes on and on and on, you go, oh no, Lewis is going to win again, and then another year goes by, and then another year goes by. But Mercedes, they were looking very, very good. Very good indeed.
Let's go into the first question from Lil Brookie P1. Are Mercedes back? They have won the last 2 races, which is quite something to say out loud. Of course, George Russell being
back to back,
reasonably fortunate with how he won Austria, but still, We've had 6 winners in the last 12 races, which is absolutely unbelievable after what Bahrain gave us. And Bahrain will always be the benchmark for me going into that season because it's the first race, the first impression you get, and you think it's going to be a sweep.
I just went through a few numbers, and 6 wins in 12 races. We had 3 winners in 28 races before that season. That's what a dire period it's been, and now we're getting so many.
Well, yeah, and quite rightly, Lewis Hamilton in the cool-down room called Max Verstappen a ball hogger, which is exactly what he has been.
I love that.
And that is a statistic that absolutely backs that up. 3 in 28, unbelievable. Let someone else have a go. But yes, our Mercedes back. I think that is an interesting one because I think the last 2 races haven't been normal. We've already said Russell wasn't anywhere near the front 2 in Austria. Here, Mercedes definitely looked a lot better for sure. They were there from free practice 1. Of course, wasn't the easiest of conditions, and that levels the playing field somewhat. And Hamilton is, of course, amazing around Silverstone. But it's a good sign, for sure. I'd say it's a good sign. I'm not expecting them to now be at the front challenging Red Bull week in, week out. We'd need a stone-dry next Grand Prix, I think, to really get an understanding of that. But right now, if you're a Mercedes fan, and if you're Lewis Hamilton, you're like, we're reaching some kind of form now. That's quite surprising.
It's very true. They were they locked out the front row, which I think was more on McLaren not locking out the front row. But it has to be said, they looked stronger than Max Verstappen's Red Bull, which was crazy to watch. Max, until the very end, kind of not really be in it. In terms of, there's always been an inevitability about Max Verstappen,
especially in those conditions, I would say.
Yeah, and you were watching the McLarens go past him. He couldn't get near the Mercedes, and you were just going, the Red Bull's not there. Like he is not, and we can talk about this. The fact that he's finished second is actually pretty unbelievable, and extended his lead again is just very Max Verstappen things, because he was in the 3rd best car today, and it looked like a race between 2 Mercs and 2 McLarens, and Max has somehow still got second. But it's very promising for Mercedes that they are up there, and just makes for even more intrigue, and even more intrigue going into next season as well.
A lot of intrigue, absolutely, and that kind of goes quite nicely into our next question from P1 Patreon member Savage Monkey 3.0. Is Lewis regretting going to Ferrari? Well, if you'd asked that question about 5 races ago, you would have said absolutely not. What are you talking about? Why would he regret going to Ferrari? But now it's completely turned on its head. Ferrari now look like they've lost the ability to do strategy and make a car, which, this is coming from a man that has seen his favourite driver be lapped in 3 of the 4 last races at some point. I know that I think Leclerc didn't finish a lap down in Austria, but he did go a lap down. And how have I witnessed 3 of those in the last 4 races for him? I will not be able to process, considering this is a car that he won in Monaco. Is he regretting it? It's too early to say. I think that it will have given him some kind of. He would have paid it some attention, I would say. The fact that he would notice that Ferrari are starting to slip away a little bit, and Mercedes, they've said that they're figuring out things about the car that they wish they'd figured out, way sooner. So I don't think it's too early to say regret. It's too early to say that. We've had a couple of great races for Mercedes, but Ferrari have also had a few great races this year. Let's see come the end of the season. But right now, he's probably going, Sainz finished 47 seconds behind me. I know he went for a pit stop and went for fastest lap, but still, Ferrari were not in the fight at any stage, really, apart from Sainz looking quite quick behind Max. But, oh my God, I don't know. This is mad. Is Hamilton going to rip it up and go back to Merc? Who knows?
Yeah, I think Formula One, unfortunately, is a very reactive business, and you can be amazing one day, and this is probably why Carlos Sainz's decision is so difficult. When Williams are scoring points, then they're last, then whatever, like the form is changing quite a lot, and it's exactly the same with Ferrari. At the start of the season, Hamilton looked like an absolute genius move that is going to Ferrari. But I think when you actually take the context of what he's doing it for, it's because it is his dream. He's the statistical GOAT.
We'll see if it stays his dream.
He obviously wants to win his 8th title, but for him, like, he is a kind of, maybe he'd always regret it if he'd never raced for Ferrari. He's always wanted to race for Ferrari. He loves the brand. And if you say, if we get to next year and he's 3 laps behind Kimi Antonelli, like a 17-year-old Kimi Antonelli driving his Mercedes, and Hamilton's getting lapped, then yes, he would go, this is not the dream I wanted. But I think you have to look at the bigger picture. And also there's a big regulation change coming in 2026, which he hopes is like the progress there.
He does. It is a beautiful ending of this chapter with Mercedes, and I think that it's the fact that he's won the British Grand Prix with them for the final time is absolutely something that he will cherish. And I don't think it's a case of even him thinking about Ferrari at this stage until we get to the end of the year. And as you say, Charles Leclerc has been lapped 11 times in a row, and oh God, why do I bother? Tommy, what is your most memorable moment? Please hit me.
My most memorable moment is watching another McLaren failure.
No, call it what you've put it in the sheet.
I wrote McLaren bottle because, I'll just go straight to the point. McLaren have bottled it again. And we need to start having the conversation that McLaren have the best car.
Oh, I love it when Tommy says we need to start having the conversation. It makes me really want to do a podcast.
Because Ferrari, and rightly so, have been memed for many, many, many years. The clown meme comes out, and it happened in this race. We'll talk about it later. I'm sure Matt will love that.
Sure, we'll get to that, yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think we are getting to, I think we're actually already there, that McLaren's season is going very Ferrari 2022 right now. They have had a winning car for so many races, and again, they have finished the race, and people maybe say it's dramatic to go, why are you beating up McLaren that they finished 3rd and 4th? That was a 1-2 every day of the week. That they messed up qualifying, which should have been a 1-2, and then the race came to them perfectly. They got the cars into 1-2, and then they threw it away again. It was absolutely shocking from McLaren, it has to be said. The Piastri one, we can look at this and go, Lando has lost another win. We've said this so many times this year, that he's lost, that should have been Lando's win. I'd argue even if Lando hadn't won, Oscar should have won, because he lost a whole pit stop pretty much. I was confused watching the race at one point, because I saw the whole field catch him up in one single lap.
Yeah.
And it was because he hadn't pitted for Inters yet. Hadn't done the double stack. Crazy.
Yes. This one's probably the biggest McLaren bottle we've seen this year, in my opinion. Just across the board, with both cars, they messed up. The Piastri no double stack. If we were to take hindsight out of it, are we being fair on them? Is what I'm trying to think right now. And you've got to double stack every single day of the week. You are risking.
Mercedes did, didn't they?
Yeah, Mercedes did it, and they've probably looked at Piastri 6/10 behind Norris and gone, oh, he's a bit close. We'll have him go one more lap, and we won't lose any time, maybe. When the reality is, you are jeopardising potentially Piastri's race completely. And you knew, and I think it was, because I watched the Sky highlights back, and I can't remember if it was Crofty or someone, that Zach Brown was like fully hands, like basically feeling to see if the rain was still coming down, as they've clearly decided for Oscar to carry on for another lap. And then they've seen all the other cars pile in, and I bet immediately they've gone, that was the wrong call, because within 2 corners of that lap, you could see in the mini box Oscar Piastri was finished. Like his lap times were not going to be anywhere near what he'd done that previous lap. You have to make that call. Losing 2 or 3 seconds is a safe, strategic call, and it's to cover off a disaster like what happened that next lap with Oscar Piastri. He lost an entire pit stop to his teammate in one lap.
In a lap.
That's
madness.
20 seconds. He finished the race 12.4 seconds off the lead at the end. Now, I will say that he was also on the medium tyres, and we'll get on to Lando very shortly. He was on the medium tyres, which was the right call for Oscar, and the mediums are generally the best race tyre for most Grand Prix that we go to. But Oscar was incredible today, and he's been shafted, not by Silver. I think I tweeted saying he was shafted by Silverstone. No, he was shafted by McLaren today by not just taking the small hit that a double stack would have done. They basically went. McLaren looked at that and went, "We want a 1-2, not potentially a 1-3 or something that might put us in danger." But instead, Piastri comes out in 6th place, I think it was at the time. So that's disastrous. Ace 12 Adam does ask, did McLaren bottle the win with either driver today? Piastri, it's all well and good him running in clean air and showcasing his pace. I will say that it is not an absolute slam dunk that Oscar Piastri would have won that race. It's all well and good catching, another thing passing. But Oscar had a chance to win, absolutely, and McLaren bottled that. We flipped to Lando. Yes, again, all they needed to do was make a decision. And there's all well and good, him staying a lap later, and maybe that's on Lando. What I don't think is right with McLaren is they're discussing what compound of tyre to go on with Lando. The bloke's driving the race. Like, just make a decision. Like, why are you discussing whether he should go on the softs to cover this person or the mediums to cover Verstappen, which was wrong anyway because Max went on the hards? It just felt like indecisiveness for a team that, again, I tweeted this and I think it sums it up perfectly, that McLaren aren't underdogs anymore. They need to stop acting like they are, and that is the big step. They are now in the spotlight. They are expected to win, and they haven't been able to deliver, which is sad. I want to see McLaren win. I want to see Lando. I want to see Oscar get his first win. But with these kind of calls, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, they're not the underdogs anymore. It's maybe a savage thing to say, but you could argue they have the best car now, but they're not the best team. And you have to... It's a strong statement, but I think it's true. And you look at what Max Verstappen is doing with Red Bull, and he's maximising when his car wasn't there. And same with, Mercedes managed to do the double stack. Of course, they were very unfortunate with Russell to have the incident. But the thing with Lando, there's 2 moments. There's 2 bits to this actually, because Lando did overshoot his pit box a little bit, which maybe cost him a couple of seconds. Does he stay ahead? It's very, very, very close. But either way, they pit on the same lap, the lap before, he wins the race. In a weird way, and this is going to hurt Lando fans, I'm very sorry, but it's a reverse Sochi. He's going onto the dry tyres too late, and he's lost a win to Lewis Hamilton. It's a very similar scenario, and maybe it's just a case of McLaren now have this fastest car, and they need to, and they will get there. I'm being very harsh on them, but I think they will get there. It comes with time, and they've got themselves to the very front of the grid, but they now need to get everything working and make sure that they're everything they're like perfecting their race, because it cannot go under the radar that in an alternate universe they win China, Miami, maybe Imola, Monaco, Canada, Spain, Austria, and Silverstone. Like they could literally be
there was an opportunity, wasn't there?
There's an opportunity.
If my grandmother had wheels, should have been a bike as well. We throw that in there as well. But I think the point you're saying is that they had. That it's not like they were nowhere. They're not.
It's not like they were nowhere, and that they are. Yeah, that is it. They're not the underdogs anymore. They need to start winning. They need to start winning in a winning car. They've got a winning car now, and they need to start winning. And for them to only have one win this year is actually very, very poor.
It speaks volumes as well. I was just loading up Zach Brown's tweet where he said, "We got that wrong, but we'll learn from that and we move on. The drivers did a great job in tricky conditions today. The upside is we walked away with more points than our closest competitors. Congratulations to Lewis on a great race. We go again in Hungary." Yeah, the fact he's jumped on very quickly, he knows that they messed up for sure. Like there's no two ways about it. How they're going to improve that, I don't know. Does there need to be more decisiveness on Lando's side of the? Because I think that Lando, he's incredibly self-critical. We know that. He says in his post-race interview almost immediately that he could have done things better as well. But also, I think, the bigger point for me was that McLaren were just indecisive. I'm not going to blame Lando for whether he goes a lap longer and a lap before. It just felt like they weren't in sync, and that's the biggest problem here.
Yeah, and that is something that the best teams and driver combination, Hamilton with Mercedes when they're dominant, Max with Red Bull when they're dominant, we always go, driver brilliance, yes, team brilliance, yes, but it has to work together. And that is what needs to happen at McLaren. They need to be decisive together and make these tough calls.
Next question is from P1 Patreon member Captain Obs. Do Ferrari and McLaren know that in GP racing you're competing for the win and not for who can make the worst strategy? So of course we have touched upon McLaren, and let's now talk about Ferrari. Now, look, I was not dialed in to the race fully because I wasn't watching at home. So I'm piecing together things where I can. I'm looking at the TV screen. I'm listening to the very subpar on-track commentary. And I just remember I sat there with my dad, right? I remember sat there with my dad. Went past, the top five, whatever. Charles has just got through on Lance Stroll. And I'm like, right, here we go. He's finally in clean air. Let's see what he can do. And then I just see from afar his name. I see him coming into the pits first and foremost because I was sat just after Stowe on the inside of the track. And I was like, Charles gone into the pits. He's going on into it, isn't he? And I'm there, just sat there, just waiting. And then I just see the green dot next to his name. And I'm like, I can see that the rain's not enough. There's no... I know everyone's sliding around. But why would they do that to Charles? I was literally sat there in disbelief, and I was like, no, surely not. Surely the graphic's wrong. The next lap he comes round, and I see green sidewall tyre, and I'm like, oh, just play it cool, Max. You're sat with Red Bull, and you're not supposed to care. But my God, did I care. And it's just, why Charles? Why always him? He finished a lap down. He got beaten by Valtteri Bottas, I think he did in the end. And then they left him out for ages because they made
good surprise.
Your biggest
good surprise if he finished ahead of Leclerc.
Yeah, don't start that. We'll get onto that argument a little bit later. But yeah, it was a poor strategy for Ferrari. I'm very surprised that they rolled the dice with him as soon as he got through the car that was basically a bit of a blockade for him. It just not the right call at all. Am I going to pop off about it? Not really, because my expectations were that he was going to finish 5th or 6th anyway. For him to finish a lap down, not so great, but...
Yeah. It was obviously a ridiculous decision, and it looks a bit farcical. I think I'll defend Ferrari a little bit here and say that they rolled the dice with the Leclerc, and while they ended up looking stupid, I think it's better to roll the dice when was he 7th or 8th or something at that point?
He was behind Sainz, so that would have been 7th, I believe. 7th.
7th, okay. So it's not, if he'd done this when he was running P2 or something, for example, and he's got a race-winning car, and this is why we were so critical of them in 2022, you go, what on earth are you doing? And they did this in 2022, and that's why we were going, what are you doing?
Why didn't they pit Leclerc, Tommy?
Yeah,
why didn't they pit
exactly.
Leclerc?
Flashbacks to that. But when, yes, it's gone wrong. I'm not defending it because I'm not saying it's a good call because it was a bad call. But chucks it down with rain. They look like absolute heroes, and at the end of the day, it's 6 points. They're nowhere. They're like
6 points
way off Formula A. Yeah, but it's not 25 points, 18 points, is it?
How's Charles Leclerc going to win the World Championship if he's not going to get those 6 points?
But this is what I mean. It's they're rolling the dice when they're not having a great weekend as it is. So I kind of see why they did it to a point.
Just let
Red
Charles
Bull
not be lapped for once. Just
Red
let
Bull
him
did the same
finish
thing,
the race
didn't
normally.
they?
Yeah, with
no
Perez,
one's laughing
but
at Red Bull.
But Perez was out for the count anyway. My guy was fighting the fluorescent wheelie bins.
True, but was Charles not last of? I guess he was like catching, like he was.
Charles was
he'd
like 5
finally
seconds
got
off Sainz.
he'd finally got to Sainz. But do you not think that in a race like that, when you're gonna, and maybe this is me just loving bin or win drivers, and it maybe I'm just too chaotic.
Yeah, you love
that
chaos.
you that why finish 7th when you could just go for something absolutely crazy and
why
you
finish
might,
7th
you
when you
might
can
win.
finish a lap down? Yeah, absolutely.
Or a lap down.
That is
YOLO.
brilliant. Yeah. No, well, look, you wouldn't be saying that if it was Max Verstappen that was a lap down. So, yes, a bad strategy from Ferrari, but I think a worse strategy from McLaren because they lost a lot more. P1 Patreon member Alan Endopay comes in with, should we reset the Drivers' Championship and go again in Hungary? If that was the case, we would have a lot of fun, but sadly, that is not how Formula One works. I do think that it's going to be very interesting.
That's how NASCAR works.
Yes, I mean, NASCAR love it. They just reset and they're like, let's go again. I think Hungary's going to be interesting, if we're looking ahead to that in 2 weeks' time, isn't it? Because it's kind of like a Monaco. Ferrari to win. Thank you very much.
Imagine, I mean, Lewis Hamilton's very good around Hungary as well. It could be Ferrari, the fact that, like you say, it's more of their kind of track. And it is incredible how it's changing, and this is what I think is helping Max in the championship and to keep it extending, that it is sometimes it's Lando, sometimes it's a Mercedes, then it's Ferrari, and it is changing, and that's what's helping him somehow extend his lead, because I think Max is papering over the cracks of Red Bull, and Red Bull are really down in the pack now.
Some good
Hungary,
paper, though,
if we'd have started again, this question
paper.
Oh yeah. This championship is wild. Like, I'm just looking at the results and how much it's changing, and the teams are catching up, and this is what I guess puts pressure on Perez when all these teams are scoring big now, and Perez isn't scoring at all. So I'd love to restart at Hungary, but Max has that massive lead. But if he didn't, boy, would we be looking good. But I think what we need to look at this and go, boy, is 2025 going to be epic. And just like every single time, we'll all be going, please, no rules, no new rules and regulations. But that's how F1 works.
Okay, let's go back to the British Grand Prix, because why would we want to stop talking about it? And this one's from Half Price John Boy. How good was Hulkenberg? My guy Nico Hulkenberg started 6th and finished 6th. I mean, this is an utterly ridiculous result for Nico Hulkenberg, and one that surely secures Haas as big points McGee is the only way I can put it. Like, to score 8 points in that Haas is just phenomenal. To beat both the Aston Martins, the Williams looked quick this weekend, and it's just utterly ridiculous. Like, Nico Hulkenberg has just capitalised on everybody else being horrendous. I say everybody else. other teammates in certain teams and strategies going wrong. And he said, gobble, gobble, thank you very much, P6.
Hulkenberg, back-to-back P6s seems impossible in a Haas, really, when you get very few retirements in Formula One. The big teams, Formula A lock out, and he's there getting back-to-back P6s. You actually look at his results, and other than a retirement and a 16th, every time he's not finished in the points, he's also finished 11th. So he is having an unbelievable season. If we had points down to, some more points, he'd be scoring at every race. But even if that's not the case, because we've had that conversation, he's still 11th in the championship. He's 1 point behind Lance Stroll. He could to finish top 10 in the Haas would be an unbelievable achievement. When we thought they were going to be absolutely awful, and Hulkenberg. The funny thing is, he's now about to move to the stake, and I was very hyped about that move earlier in the season, because I thought Audi, finally, Audi, they're going to be amazing, and now I'm not so sure. And he also has to drive the stake next year. Hulkenberg deserves a good seat in Formula One. I can see why he's not like a team like Mercedes or whatever wouldn't put him in, because he's getting towards the end of his career. It's a shame his career has gone that way, and there's this, unfortunately for Nico Hulkenberg, the podium thing will always be like a shadow over his career, and it's an unfair one because he's only ever driven midfield cars. Yes, of course he has bottled podium finishes, but that's because he was about to win in a Force India. Like, that is just shows what, like, in a way, like, what an incredible driver he was to be there in the first place. Hulkenberg doing a brilliant job.
Well done, Nico. For sure. Let's see if Haas can continue to build on this. He absolutely cooked his teammate by a whopping 35 seconds. Let's see if that hits Biggest Flop. We'll get to that shortly.
Did you see the stat about, because last year we had the Q3 one with Perez. There's a new Nico Hulkenberg Perez stat that's doing the rounds on Twitter and gone very viral, which is Nico Hulkenberg has scored more points in the last 2 races than Sergio Perez has in the last 6. Ouch.
Oh my God. Yeah, maybe Daniel Ricciardo to Red Bull is actually happening. We will see. Right, next question. 46788700A. Should Red Bull just run one car and spend all resources on it? Oh, that is a great question. And I'm sure they're considering it at this point because Perez's mistake in qualifying just absolutely ruined just any chances for them. Of course, Perez then started from the pit lane, didn't he, as well, which didn't help. Of course, they wanted to make some changes on the car. But I'm not going to change what I said after qualifying because I wasn't expecting him to really do anything in the race, perhaps score a point. But he was kind of used as a bit of a test subject, really, wasn't he, on for tyres and that sort of stuff, and let's see how the inters work and things like that. So it's not like he had the best strategy to go ahead and score some points. But let's see. Hungary, if he has another stinker there, then I reckon Red Bull could make a very, I was going to say difficult decision. I don't know if it's that difficult if he has another stinker in Hungary, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the Red Bull love a summer break. I think they'll be praying that Daniel Ricciardo delivers form because
sticks it on pole in Hungary.
Yeah, exactly. Because Yuki had another good race, which I'm sure Christian Horner was covering his eyes and ears and pretending it didn't happen.
I sleep.
I sleep, exactly. Get Yuki in, for goodness sake. But they won't. But Perez, I think it's maybe a bit unfair to say his race, like to beat him up for that race. You can beat him up for qualifying, and that obviously affected his race. but at the end of the day, like you say, he was a guinea pig from essentially the get-go. They did the same thing, didn't they, with that they did with Leclerc, like we were discussing earlier, and from then on it was just it was quite funny actually watching a few people in the stand next to me that every time Perez got lapped, there are a few people next to me that thought Verstappen was getting overtaken and they were cheering, but it was Perez getting lapped.
It was indeed. Right, let's go to biggest winner then, shall we? And I believe it has to be Lewis Hamilton because he literally won the race after 2.5-year drought. I think that's probably right up there. Anyone else? Nico Hulkenberg is definitely a shout. Alex Albon, we haven't even really mentioned him, scoring a couple of points for Williams, despite picking up that damage at the start as well. Which did he change his front wing, or did he just drive around the problem? Because it was like a small. Because I know Logan Sargent said like, "Oh, Alex has had a bit of debris come off the car, or whatever it was." But for Alex, after that chaotic lap 1 to still finish 9th, is quite. I mean, quite. It shows that Williams really were right there.
They were, and I'm actually appalled that you didn't mention Logan Sargent because he's propelled himself to P20 in the championship now with that result.
Has he?
Bottas is last. Bottas is the new P21. Oh no, we'll get into this later. You know what I'm going to say about my prediction. But I'd also argue it into the mix that Max is almost one of the biggest winners as well, because how he's extended his championship lead after that race when it looked like he should have been 5th.
Yeah,
it should have been
5th or 6th was on the cards, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. There was one point where the 2 McLarens and 2 Mercedes were all 4 of them were racing for the win, and Max had nothing.
Yeah,
and he's beaten Lando again.
I don't know how he's done
how.
That. Yeah, all right. Okay, well, I'm going to say Lewis Hamilton because I can't not.
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah, it's got to be Lewis.
Okay, well done, Lewis. But a very honourable mention for Max Verstappen for sure. Biggest loser. Now, I think this one has to be a certain team that we spoke to this week, Tommy. Alpine. My God, they've had the worst weekend ever since speaking to us. Like, it is absolutely abysmal. We speak to Gasly, 50-place penalty for the race. Gasly then doesn't start the race pretty much because he's DNF'd, was on the formation lap. He came into the pits and then that was it. And then Ocon...
Gasly was so scared of our curse that he just didn't fancy even doing the race.
And then Ocon finished 2 laps down. What have we done? That just as they were looking good, Tommy, you even, I mean, your prediction, we'll get onto that shortly, but my God, what?
Do you reckon that was the double hammer blow was a Tommy prediction and us interviewing them? It was like the ultimate curse.
Mate, you even said to Ocon, you even said to him off camera, mate, last time we spoke to you, you got a podium at Monaco. And then he proceeded to go, okay, 2 laps down. Lovely. Okay, so biggest loser has to be Alpine, right?
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, it is Alpine.
And
it's
actually,
too hard.
I'm going to throw Russell in there as well. Started on pole and ended up DNFing, which is painful for him. I can only imagine how gutted he's feeling tonight.
Yes. Perez, you can't really say biggest loser because it is...
standard.
It just is standard, but I forgot to mention this actually when we were talking about him. Sorry to bring one more thing into the mix, but he has to have a good race in Hungary because he is 8 points off Hamilton now in 8th. He could legitimately be 8th in the
when you say 8 points
championship.
off, do you mean 8 points ahead?
8 points. So he's 8 points ahead at the moment. Yeah. So we could end the next race where Max is leading the championship by a huge margin and his teammate is 8th in the championship.
Yeah, he's going to need a little top 5 at the very least there, Perez. So sort that one out. Let's go to our predictions then, shall we? And what we thought was going to happen for this weekend. Now, biggest good surprise. I am absolutely fuming. I thought I had chefed up an absolute treat with this one. When McLaren went 1-2, I was like, it's in the bag. They were quicker in slippery conditions, which is what was happening at the time, and they looked like they had enough pace in the dry to hold on, and they finished third and fourth. It's an absolute disaster.
It looked like they'd kind of messed this up, like we were saying earlier, in qualifying, and thought, oh, your prediction's not on here, and then it looked like, oh my god, they're actually going to finish 1-2 and you're going to get it again, but no, they did not do that.
Oh, why would you do that? Because that cost me so many points. Anyway, Tommy, what's your biggest good surprise?
My biggest good surprise was Valtteri Bottas, and he responded by getting beaten by his teammate in qualifying for the first time and then getting overtaken by Logan Sargent in the World Championship. So what a performance, Bottas.
Your biggest good surprise is something special. That needs to be studied in itself, to be honest with you. Okay, let's now go to biggest flop, shall we? And I said Kevin Magnussen, who finished 35 seconds off of his teammate, who finished 6th. Thoughts, Tom Bellingham?
Let me just try and... where was Magnussen? Oh, I think this has to...
Got beaten by Logan Sargent.
Oh,
he got beaten by
it's
Logan.
This is a really marginal one, because if you just look at Magnussen's result, you go, oh, it's kind of normal. But then you look at his teammate. But then is it just more his teammate being exceptional than Magnussen being floppy?
I'll accept that it's not floppy.
No,
if he'd finished kind of, well, it's the thing, right? Is that he finished ahead of Leclerc and Perez that were both shafted, 2 wheelie bins, and the Alpines that had no hope after the start of the week. So it's fine. I won't take it, but I wish I could. Tommy, what was yours?
Mine was Lando Norris, which I would have been tempted to even argue this one if he'd have maybe not been on the podium.
Yeah, I would have accepted it.
Because he had to be on the podium. They're gutted with it, and I think Lando will be gutted with being 3rd, which shows how far they've come. But it's not a flop.
Not a flop indeed. Let's go to pole position then, and I went for Lando Norris. Nope.
I went for Oscar Piastri. Nope.
Good. And then my top 3, in 3rd place, Max Verstappen, which at one point was too high for what he was currently achieving at the time, and then managed to go past. Brilliant.
P3 went for Oscar Piastri. No.
And then in
robbed
second...
of maybe a podium again.
Yes, very robbed. Hugely robbed. I hope he doesn't have a Silverstone curse. I really don't. In second place, I went for Oscar Piastri, which should have happened, but it didn't. So that's lovely. That's a big old pill to swallow, isn't it? What's your second place, Tommy?
I went for Lando, which he did not finish second.
Are we on course to score absolutely no points here?
We are on for a disaster class.
Oh my God!
I know we wanted to massy this title, but I wasn't expecting a Hamilton Verstappen collision.
This is a Monza 2021.
Yeah.
In first place, I went for Lando Norris, which was going to happen, and then it didn't.
Oh dear! And I went for Max, which didn't happen.
No, and he wasn't leading at any point, which is crazy. Speaking of, one crazy prediction. I went for McLaren 1-2, which was going to happen. Half a point. What are we saying?
And I went for Alpine double points.
Wow.
And they sure did the double of being awful.
So we've scored 0 points this week. That
What a week.
Wild. And considering...
Why do people listen to our podcast?
God knows. But considering there was genuine points on the cards there until about 10 laps to go for both of us, I think, for that to not have happened is utterly bizarre. And finally, 3 crazy predictions from you, wonderful lot. First and foremost, can we get the full clean sweep of 0 points? Huisman 2006, Williams get a top 10 finish. Yes. We finally, as a
Points
group,
on the board.
Well done.
Well done, fans.
You beat us this
Fans
week with 1 point. Dan Duffy 27, Joe makes it into Q2. He did.
Oh my word!
Oh my God!
Fair play.
Dan Duffy
Fans
cooking as well.
Cooking this week.
And then Kieran F321, so close. Logan Sargent points, and he finished 11th.
Oh
which
my word!
I will actually say, I'm trying to decipher whether Logan Sargent still had a stinker in a really good car. because he's finished 20 seconds off of his teammate who smashed part of his wing off at the start.
It's
Do
very
you know what
true,
I mean, though? Like,
yeah. No,
I'm not trying
I
to
agree.
be horrible, but also I'm just looking at his race and going. But then again, I might have missed.
Can't wait for driver ratings.
27-second pit stop or something.
Yeah, I know what you mean. What I would say is, if Logan had got that extra position, they are the most 3 wild prediction from fans that would have come true. That I'd have said that we'd have gone for, like, ours looked very doable with all ours, and we got nothing. And the fans are like, Joe makes Q2, boom. Williams top 10, boom. Logan Sargent. So
yeah,
close.
to be fair, actually, Huisman and Kieran would have got it together had Logan just scored a point, but alas, Logan did not. And that concludes a very quiet but energetic inside kind of podcast. Tommy slightly unwell, me in a hotel room, and whoever is next door to me has just listened to the entire British Grand Prix race review on the P1 podcast. An exclusive, in fact, so hopefully they've enjoyed that. Tommy, what are your final thoughts, please, sir?
Final thoughts are just big love to everyone at the British Grand Prix that came and said hello. Had a little chat for whatever. Oh, actually, this is unbelievable. These are my final thoughts. Yeah.
Nice.
Shout out. Yeah, you can
lock in.
check out the YouTube, because you've got to see this at the end if you're on audio. Daphne Sanders, after our live show. Look at that. And Matt got one as well.
I did. I don't have it
me
with me right
as
now.
a little, what would you call it? Funko Pop, is it?
It's so cool.
It's like a 3D printed.
I have one as well,
me.
and it's got a Ferrari jacket on. Have you got a little Max?
I've got a Max
so cool.
jacket.
I'll definitely
Awesome.
show mine off in the next Twitch stream that we do for Hungary or whenever it might be, because it's mega. So thank you so much, Daphne, for that. And yeah, my final thought is just thank you. Like, the British Grand Prix is absolutely my favourite weekend of the year, and you lot did not disappoint. You came in your rafters. That's the right word, isn't it? And you, quite literally needed a raft as well for how wet it was.
No.
And thank you for keeping the vibes up, for turning up for me and Tommy to stand on that main stage. As a kid that used to go to Silverstone and dream of having something to do with it, but having no talent whatsoever to be able to build a car, to now being part of the Silverstone entertainment program with Tommy is just utterly unbelievable. So I'm definitely going to take a few days to process what's happened this weekend. And thank you to everybody once again. And also, sorry if we missed things. We will be digesting more information as the next couple of days go ahead, so that we can understand what went on. Because when you're at a Formula One race, you do miss a few things, don't you, Tommy? So, that is it. We're done. We're dusted. British Grand Prix.
Don't worry, we will be studying Zhou Guanyu's race from start to finish for driver ratings, so don't worry, everyone.
Don't you worry, everybody. We will do a lap by lap analysis from lap 1 to 50 to whatever it was. And that is it. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you very soon. Of course, driver ratings will be back, and we've got a few things to talk about over the next week or so. So look forward to that, and we will see you soon. And of course, don't forget, US live show tickets are still available, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Sorry for like the really kind of quiet, sort of
mellow
dulcet.
podcast.
If you're a P1 patron, it might remind you of P1 After Dark, where I talk a little bit more subtly and a little bit more smoothly, a little bit deeper. Oh yeah. Can we give you 15 more seconds to get it to 1 hour, and then we stop?
I was thinking literally the same thing.
Oh my God, we are so the same person. But then it might actually include some edits as well, so it might actually be under an hour, and they'll be like, why the hell have you said it's going to be an hour when it's